guys, DevilHunterXYZ, and the update finally came for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. One of the things is, if you go into the options, you actually find an option for the double tap for slam, which I highly recommend turning this thing on. So now instead of the slamming happening automatically whenever you grind, you can actually just now double tap the grind button to activate the slam. So it kind of gives you more control of grinding, you know, and kind of makes it feel how it was in previous Tony Hawk games. And as for the added characters, as you can see, I've got all of them, including King, and I even got the 80s Hawk. But the two they added were Tyler the Creator, another rapper, and weirdly they have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all of them. Which I'm kind of glad they added more characters, although I was kind of more expecting more pro skaters like Bob Burnquist or Stevie Williams or Bam Margera. But anyway, for this video, I'm going to go through one of the new levels, Wild West, and complete all of the missions on SIG difficulty. And the Wild West is pretty much how it sounds, you know, it's just the Wild West, out in a desert environment. It's actually pretty good, still a little bit on the small side, but you know, this is a good change. Well, the first mission, Aces High, is of course another high score mission. But for this level, for a SIG rating, you need 8 million points, which is pretty extreme, even more so than Mountain. And at first, getting 8 million seems almost impossible, but it is still doable. I'd say first thing to do is just build up your special meter, and also if you have a character that you're constantly using, I'd say put some stats on it, you know, for manuals and airtime. And for Tony, I'm just going to be using the 900 over and over until the special meter runs out. And at this point, I'm just going to keep using the revert manuals and just keep building up the trick multiplier. I would say try to get it close to about 100 if you can. And then after that, just keep repeating the process until you get 8 million. You might have to run over the clock a little bit, but as long as you still keep the combo going, it still counts. Well, for the second mission, Hangman's Head, is another big head challenge, where you have to keep doing tricks to keep your percentage down. And for SIG rating, you have to do it in 90 seconds. But the more challenging thing here is you can't use any reverts, so you have to kind of rely on manuals and grinds to get you higher tricks. But I say for the first part, just let the percentage build up a little bit, you know, no need to worry about tricks at this point. I say once it gets close to about 70 or 80%, start doing some basic tricks, should bring it down a little bit. And I say around, once you hit a minute, it starts getting a little bit faster, and at that point, just keep using grinds and manuals, start tricking together anything you possibly can. It's not really too hard of a mission. Well, the next mission, Dances with Combos, requires you to get a high combo score within the time limit, and for sick rating you need 300,000 points. But the added challenge is you can't use any manuals or reverts. So it may seem impossible at first, but luckily you're in the underground mining area of the map. So really you can just use the tracks to just grind and trick off them every once in a while, and you should be able to build the points off pretty quickly. Well, for the mission Cowboy Collector, it's another Hawkman type challenge where you have to collect the colored pellets, where yellow is grind, red is air, green is manual, and blue is wall ride. Luckily there aren't any wall rides in this one, but this does get a little bit confusing at first, trying to figure out where to go first, but as long as you follow this path, it's not too much of a problem. And when you get to this point, make sure to slam when you hit the grind, that way you can collect the pellets. When you get to this point, jump up, grind, but don't jump, just fall down to get the red pellets. And at this point might be a little bit tricky where you have to jump into a grind. You might overshoot it, so you gotta be careful with that. And then once you get to this point, make sure to get the power up so that way you can shrink down in size, because you're gonna need it to get to the lower areas right here when you manually. But overall, to get a SIG rating, you had to complete the entire run within 60 seconds. Well, for the next mission, the Lone Trickster, it's another Tony Says type game, so you had to keep doing the tricks that Tony calls out. For a SIG rating, you need 250 points. And honestly, I say this one's a little bit easier compared to the Mountain, where I don't think he calls out any inverts, so you don't have to worry about that. But for the most part, just keep doing the tricks that Tony calls out and you should easily get the 250 points. Well, the mission Sheep Shearing requires you to use dynamite to clear out all the sheep in the quarry. And unfortunately, when you first start the mission, at least for me anyway, it gets laggy at first, so you kind of lose a little bit of control of the character. And I'm not sure if it's just the way it's programmed or whatever, so you've got to be aware of that. But anyway, just keep using the dynamite to clear out the sheep. If you can position it well enough, you can potentially get a whole group. And I said the best thing to do is try to clear up this area within 30 seconds. That way you have the last 15 to get to the second area. And if you can position the dynamite well enough there, you can potentially get them all out in one shot. But overall, if you can do it within 45 seconds, you can get a SIG rating. For the next mission, Fistful of Gold requires you to get as many gold nuggets as you can and take them back to the exit. For a SIG rating, you need 60. So it was not too bad compared to previous missions that are like this. I'd say first off, just get to this area, start grinding around, and they can get 12 nuggets pretty easily. And from this point, just keep grinding against the wires, collecting nuggets around this area. I say if you can, get about maybe 30, and then get yourself to the exit, and then just redo the entire thing a second time. Well, for the mission Dynamite Dash, it requires you to use dynamite to blow up all the targets. And for sick rating, you have to do this all in 45 seconds. So I say for the first part, just keep using the rails right here to give yourself some speed. And just make sure not to miss any of the targets, otherwise you most likely will have to restart the entire mission. And then once you get to this point, you gotta grind on top of the ledge. And from here, you have to jump across. If you don't, then you just gotta grind off the edge and waste time trying to get back up. But at this point, just keep grinding. Make sure to get that air target. And if you can, try not to hit the wall right here. And you should be able to just barely make it. Well, for the mission Manual Lotto, you get a score depending on the amount of time manualing multiplied by the trick multiplier. And for SIG rating, you need 20,000 points. And unfortunately, there is no half pipes or anything to do revert manuals, so you're stuck having to use these rails. So the best strategy here is just to grind on the rails, trick off of them, and just keep building up the multiplier. I say once you get to around 50, just start manualing and you should have enough points. And just to keep in mind, just try not to go past the cones, as if you do, you'll lose your entire combo and you have to start all over again. And finally, for the mission Muster Mapping, you get points by the number of maps collected multiplied by the trick multiplier. And for sick rating, you need 1,000 points. So first things first is to build up the trick multiplier. So get to this spot right here and just keep going off the quarter pipes to build up the trick multiplier. And I'd say once you get about 50, if you can, just start grinding along the edges, collecting as many maps as you can. And if you're lucky enough, get your hands on some of the gold maps, as they give you a lot more points. But for the most part, they're all random, so you just gotta get a lucky game. And with that takes care of all the missions on Sick difficulty for the Wild West. So for the most part, the level wasn't too bad. A little bit on the fun side, some new interesting things thrown in. Well, for the next video, I guess I'll tackle the next level, the next new one, the Underground. Well, this is DevilHunterXYZ, and until next time.